I wasn't happy with fragmented care that I was offering. I would see patients do well when they really doubled down on all the lifestyle factors and their daily habits, but I just didn't know how to counsel there.
The way we look at health and wellness is always from the ground up and from the inside out.
We both felt that it was needed to cut through the noise of what's out there and what's trendy and what really is going to be meaningful. And we always say longevity starts today. It's not just starting at a certain age. It really is for everybody at any time. I will often say you're paying into your 401k of health and longevity with those daily habits and decisions.
And it's also never too late. We have clients that start with us in their 70s and 80s and make unbelievable gains and huge changes in their quality of life.
Welcome to the very first episode of the Everyday Longevity Collective, the show where applied longevity meets everyday life. Today, we're doing something special. But before we ever talk about hormones, mobility, metabolism, or health span, we need to understand why the show exists and who the two minds behind it really are. So, this is the origin story, the personal and professional journeys that shaped Dr. Datta-Thomas and Dr. Thomas, and the philosophy that brought movement, science, and functional medicine under one roof. So let's start at the beginning. Dr. Datta is a Hopkins trained GYN robotic surgeon by background, now practicing as a longevity physician and VP of medical operations. Dr. Thomas is a functional movement expert and chiropractor with 20 years in performance and injury prevention. But their real differentiator is what happens when these two worlds combine, when movement and medicine stop living in silos and start working together. So that's what this collective is about. And I'm so excited to learn a little bit more about both of you and this collective. So let's get to it. But before we get into the science, I want to start off with your why. So, why this show? Why now? And why the two of you together in this format? So, I'm excited to dive in. Dr. Data, I know your career path is rare, from high volume robotic surgery to private practice to startup medicine to VP of medical operations. So, what shaped this evolution?
Well, I do feel like it's been a really lucky series of events for me, a lineup of really great opportunities that I was just ready for. So I was ready to take the leap in a lot of these things. I think through my medical career, I just realized that I was very limited in what I can offer in some of the steps that were actually super empowering and very important for the patients outside of just what I was offering as surgery. But I didn't really have the knowledge to fill in those gaps, though I would see patients do well when they really double down on all the lifestyle factors and their daily habits, but I just didn't know how to counsel there. And so when I started looking around, it just started not only coming through with my individual practice, but I did realize there was more of a systemic approach that was missing in terms of what I was looking for. And I think especially with COVID and pandemic, as healthcare providers, we had a big, kind of reckoning, and I really did a lot of introspection, and I wasn't happy with fragmented care that I was offering. So I went out and I got opportunities around self-education to really fill in those gaps. And that's when I came across more of the functional medicine and longevity care is now what we're calling it. But we've been doing it for probably, close to 20 years now. And then, of course, as we had a family, my why became very clear. Dr. Thomas and I have 4 girls together, and they're very much our why. And we want to leave the healthcare system and the world a better place. And between the two of us, we get a lot of these questions now that information is so available, especially through social media, podcasts like this, and our friends, our family, and our patients tend to ask us a lot more about this now. And so we realize these are the conversations we're having behind closed doors in private or with our close friends and family. Why not bring it to this format where we can have the discussion with much bigger audiences and really try to move the needle in a bigger way?
I think that it's great that you're doing this podcast now because these are conversations, like you said, you're already having. So it's great to be able to, share this with other people as well. And Dr. Thomas, I don't know if you wanted to chime in a little bit about your experience as well.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, as a chiropractor and as a functional movement specialist, the way we look at health and wellness is always kind of from the ground up and from the inside out. So this has been, the collaboration for us has been a natural progression as we look at people globally and see how, how these things affect them again from the, bottom up and the inside out. So we're really, and then again, as the information and science continues to get better on the subject and the importance of both looking at health in a different way and movement as such an integral part of longevity and functional living. That's how we've kind of developed, as, again, a 20-year practitioner in this field. My practice has continued to adapt with the science and with the change in healthcare and with this wellness management so that, it's brought us to this point where we can, I think, speak on this with, a level of experience and bring a lot of, these personal backgrounds to it.
Absolutely. I think it's, like I said, so unique that you both have such are able to bring them together in such a way. And even though your career path has been rare and unique from high volume robotic surgery to private practice to startup medicine to VP of medical operations, what do you think really shapes this evolution?
I think, a lot of times a doctor's personal journey affects how they practice. And I definitely see that for myself. I was really in that go, go, go career path and I wanted the intensity. And I think surgery was really that for me. But then as I evolved and I saw also a number of family members go through some really intense issues involving cardiovascular care and cardiometabolic issues, it became more personal for me in terms of why am I seeing this, especially in my South Asian family and the South Asian patients that I have over and over again? And then as I became a wife and a mother, I really looked more globally, and it helped me even want to further the pursuit of building a better holistic approach to things. That just is what landed as longevity care, and it really did inform my transition also into more of the operations side. And I feel really lucky to have a unique situation where I'm still a practicing clinician, but I can really heavily be a part of building out our offerings in the back end. So I take that really patient obsessed approach when we're diligencing our vendors, our partners, our training for our front desk staff, our clinicians, our marketing, really baking that really high touch, patient obsessed approach is really what I see I want for my own friends and family and myself and to deliver for my own patients so I can do it on a system wide basis. And a lot of that starts from home. My discussions at home, especially once, we got married and we were kind of comparing notes and we would get in these arguments and he would say to me, your preventive visits aren't really preventive. And I was like, no, on the insurance billing, it says preventative, preventative visits, and we would start even at that, but just opening up these perspectives and the mindset. And for me, it really, evolved alongside my roles in life. And it really affected how I brought it to my patients.
Definitely such a, like I said, unique evolution. But I think also the fact that you touched on being patient obsessed and bringing that in is such a important thing. I've worked in healthcare administration before and a lot of healthcare startups. So I know from the experience that I have, which is somewhat relative, how that patient focus can really just change the trajectory of so much within a practice and how important that aspect truly is.
Absolutely. And you're at your most vulnerable a lot of times when you're in the medical system at the bedside, like if you're in ICU care, really those little gestures, the personal touch is such a critical make or break of your emotional state at that point and how you're providing care. And that should really be thought of as the first thing. It's hard in our current system. And I used to be in the insurance-based system, which was 15, 20 patients a day. I would see patients 15, 20 minutes a year. So that has certain limitations of how well you can connect and create these experiences in a broader way. So I think, there is this, kind of expanding awareness that that type of experience is so critical and we can't continue to sacrifice that in the day-to-day care.
For you, Dr. Thomas, you built a practice from scratch and have led a multidisciplinary team for nearly 2 decades now. So, what really helped you shape your path?
A lot of it is like with Dr. Data, it's, we're so invested with each patient or client. So it's like really figuring out what's in the best care and best, the needs of the client or patient. So in the moment, it's like, again, it's not always, it may not always be direct chiropractic care. It may not just be one or the other. And what we realized is it's usually a complement of many different practices that kind of give them the results that they need. So by putting their needs first and, figuring out like, all right, do I have all the tools? Am I offering them all the tools that they could possibly use to get to the result that they need? That's where I feel like that investment in the client and in the patient to make sure that they get the result that they want has really kind of, progressed us to to this level where, we're now a multi-generational practice. Not only do we usually start with one, but then we usually get the spouse and then the kids and then the grandparents. And, it's because of that, the way we look at each person individually and make sure that we're giving them all the best possibilities for a good outcome in their care and their overall picture on health, that I think why, my practice has been able to, really kind of progress through all the changes in time and the 2 decades of challenges that any business would go through. So most of our patients tend to be with us. Our average is probably like 15 years, and they don't really turn over because we really, as their life is adapting, we're adapting with them. So for as their needs change, we change with them. So I think that's a lot of how we approach health and wellness for not only for ourselves, but for our clients and our family. And then I think, we have a very similar approach in that, and that, we're looking for the highest level of care that we can offer and whatever tools that is, whether it's in our practice or outside of our practice, to make sure they get that result.
Absolutely. That's definitely such a long time to be with the same practice. So that's definitely, I think, impressive, and also really speaks volumes of what you've created as well. And since you both worked in different corners of healthcare, when did you realize that your work actually belonged together?
Yeah, it was a nice kind of natural and organic partnership because once we got married and we were kind of talking a little bit more on a day-to-day basis about career moves, and as we started growing our family, I remember, I was really thinking of what's next. I'm in this busy surgical practice. I was pregnant and I just didn't know what that looked like in a way that achieved the balance I wanted. Also, I realized, I'm in this great practice, but what's the next step for me? And I'm somebody that always likes to think 2, 3 steps ahead. And there were a lot of changes going on pretty quickly. So just thinking through what was the best fit so that it was still meeting goals on professional development and advancement, but still accommodating for the really tight and important family focus that we were kind of starting out on a path. And I remember John said to me, like, you could just do your own thing. Why don't you just do your own thing and see how you do and build it yourself? And I think for me, as total rule follower in the system, and like I always kind of follow the formula of graduating residency, going on to the fellowship, going on to practice. And I think that's where his perspective of being a practice owner and also having practice management as more of his education really was helpful for me. And so I always say your secret weapon for your career is really sometimes picking a good partner who can kind of help you open up your horizons. And with that, I started a small boutique practice, and from there is when one after the other women were reaching out about hormone health, and that wasn't my quote unquote niche because I was very focused on the surgery, but I was realizing, oh my gosh, these women are struggling. This is something I really need to keep up with and catch up with. And that, kind of really pushed me to start more of the self-education and build something that matched what I was interested in, what I was seeing, meeting the patient demand. So in that moment, I realized, hey, this is something I'm going to have to build for myself. I'm going to have to create my own path, and it has to feel right for me in my skill set, but also my values and what I'm seeing is needed out there. And certainly that where I am now has answered a lot of things. And again, I feel lucky that I've created a unique situation. But just those questions, that you ask yourself or maybe somebody else asking you can really put you on the right path and help you focus on what you need for your individually tailored goals and practice.
Obviously, I can attest to just knowing that women's hormonal health is something that is so complex and it's not easy to navigate. So I definitely understand how that became such a big importance, even if it wasn't like the intention to begin with.
Right. And funny enough, because of that experience, I realized, wow, hormone health touches so many aspects of health, right? It's not just this one thing I can be that we can silo for my patients. How am I talking about this and not talking about, in extensive ways, their insulin management, their stress management, what's going on at home? I really learned to put it in the full context because I sat and I do now sit for an hour to get to know my patients. I realize that there's so many factors involved. And with functional medicine, longevity approach, we're really doing all the system integration that we need. And it's not just, I'm your hormone doctor. I'm not just, your doctor in one area. It really did allow me. And then once I was hearing John's conversations, funny enough, I started bringing a lot more of the musculoskeletal health into my own consults because it's such an area that, again, those lifestyle and lifestyle habits are so important. From what I was learning, it's helped me to talk about that from a more point of expertise as well.
Absolutely. And what about you, Dr. Thomas? When did you really realize that your work actually did belong together as well?
Similar to what Dr. Dada said is when she opened up her boutique practice, we actually did a bit of a shared space for a while, and we had complementing services. What we realized, especially in my practice, which was overall a health and wellness practice, people were running into, and as I mentioned, as our clients were aging with us, they were hitting these milestones where their hormones were dropping off, they were having the symptoms that would go along with that. And having her in office was a great way to be able to answer those questions. And, she, at the time, she was providing hormone health. So it was a great complement for hitting those issues right while they were happening. So having that complement at the time is what we were figuring out. And then we realized, like, again, they were very synergistic, right? As we're complementing hormone health and we're seeing, women fall off in maintaining muscle and, metabolism, things like that, that those two were very complementary.
So he hired me.
Yeah, it's my best hire.
So, Dr. Thomas, when you say applied longevity, what does that mean to you?
So for us, when we think about applied longevity in our space, we do a lot of body composition analysis. So we look at patients as they progress through their age. And again, we have the benefit of having clients for a long period of time. So when in their initial intake, we do a body composition to see where their bone health is, where their body fat composition is, whether they're carrying a lot of visceral fat, whether they're maintaining, skeletal muscle. And then we look for ways where we can optimize those, right? Where can we reduce their visceral fat? Where can we reduce their overall body fat composition? And then can we increase lean muscle? And so in our programming, that's what we focus on and how we can do those things to optimize that composition, which along with proper mobility and movement really gives you the best opportunity to, do all the things that you want to do in the long term, right? Our goal is for people to stop limiting, and reducing the things they do as they get older and looking to maintain, if not increase, what they're capable of as they continue to train and get healthier and leaner.
This is a, conversation we have a lot with our patients with we're seeing certain results or we're using, you read about certain supplements or habits or, things like that. How do we apply it into your everyday practice for yourself? And how do we bring those recommendations around what we've discovered in your labs or recommendations around hormone health balance and put it into your daily routine, into your own lifestyle? That's where we're really applying the concepts of longevity, which, funny enough, is actually a day to day concept building up to longevity. I will often say you're paying into your 401k of health and longevity with those daily habits and decisions. And that's where we really bring all of our clinical protocols, our mindset discussions, our relationship building, the environment you're in. That's where we're really hitting the balance of applied longevity for individuals and, the bigger population.
I would say on the lines of applied longevity, we really look at people's lifestyle, your ability to get up and down from, a seated. So like, squatting, things like that, natural movements, we tend to lose those, right? We tend to need to use our arms to get out of chairs. We tend to, lose the strength in our legs, our ability to maintain balance. All those things are what we think about in maintaining like applying this to people's long-term longevity, avoiding falling, being able to maintain reaction time, and then really keeping that quick connection between your brain and your body, right? A lot of what I see with aging is like, your mind, you have in your mind, you want to be moving quickly, but that connection is slow. And so like what can we do to maintain that? And all of that helps in preventing injury going forward and still also keeping you capable as you age. But all of that is how we kind of think of longevity is like, how can we optimize those years as we age to be able to do what we want to do with as little loss in that capability.
And that's speaking to the concept that we talk about a lot in this space with health span. What do the last years or what do those last decades of our lives look like? We want to be mobile. We want to be engaging with our friends and family in the way that we want to. We work with a lot of high performers and they want to be high performers, but the reality is we have to do things in the everyday that can assure that long-term success. So that health span is really what we have on our minds and what you want that to look like for you.
And I think like, and we can do that at every age. So,
Mhm.
the whole idea is like the thing that we do, we have kids as young as, 8, 10, where we do developmental things. And all of those things add to the bank that build you to what you're capable and will be able to do as you get older. And again, whatever age that's starting at, it's the same idea. Where are you at now? What can we do to make you better? And then what can we do to also, long term correct for things that may create injury in the future or, that may limit you going forward. So we try to address all those things and we kind of try to look at you globally. Like, even though you may be coming in or you may have a knee injury or you may have what else may be going on that may be, be causing that or be limiting you. And so by addressing all of those things and looking at them in a bigger picture, we tend to be able to avoid a lot of things going forward and usually resolve the initial issue as well.
And what can listeners really expect from this podcast specifically? So, what kinds of conversations do you think we'll be having? What kind of guidance? Is there anything really particular that you think this podcast will be focusing on?
Sure. I think right now we both felt that it was maybe needed to cut through the noise of what's out there and what's trendy and, what really is going to be meaningful for people to understand how a longevity can come to them. And we always say longevity starts today. It's not just starting at a certain age, it really is for everybody at any time. And a lot of things that you do for just general lifestyle and for your health, movement is tied to your metabolism. It's tied to your hormone responses, and especially going through hormonal transitional phases with natural aging, how your mindset can affect your health, how your relationships, your environment. So we really put all of it together. I think the two of us also have a lot of perspectives on not only male but female, not only the physical composition and body longevity, but also the metabolic health. We kind of combine all of these aspects into what is really can be boiled down to the individual approach to do it and make it bite size and approachable. That's really I think where we can be successful and it can be something that we meet patients or listeners where they are. Right. Everybody, like, what we were talking about before is how to create really tailored experiences. Everybody is going to have individual responses, priorities, goals, and so forth. But all of these little habits along the way in the context of the bigger picture can be really helpful and can help you distill down what's important for you as an individual. I have a lot of patients that come in and they say, oh, I saw this on whatever this came up in my feed or my for you page or my friend's trying this, my sister's trying this, to really understand how to bring all of that to a point where it's just approachable, what you should have focus on as an individual. And oftentimes it's really kind of nailing down the basics and letting that dictate, but also not to forget all of the things in life that really do affect it, which you may not think of.
Absolutely. I think, like you said, they're cutting out the noise is so important because there's so much information everywhere. We live in a world of too much information. So I think that that's a good point and great for our listeners to understand that this is what we'll be focusing on the reality of things from actual professionals, from experienced people, not just the things and tips you might grasp online. Really, really getting to the important and real things. So for you, Dr. Thomas, what do you think about what conversations and what kind of guidance our listeners can really expect from your point of view?
Yeah, what we are looking to add as value is what you can, really make tangible in a daily routine that can help promote your health in the long term. Things that become like very doable and not because there's some again, like you said, there's so much information out there and it does become overwhelming and you feel like you should be doing it all. So how can we tailor that down for you to make it digestible? How can you give them really practical ideas on how to implement these things in their daily routine? Just doing the little things from, how you get up in the morning to, how you start your day, how you go about your day, and the same thing about how you end your day. Trying to make those little changes that can make, that again all add up and, build your bank for longevity and wellness as a bigger picture.
Also, we both hope that this is somewhere where also our professional development and our unique careers, and then kind of how we have built a family on our values and how we incorporate our health and perspective on wellness into that. So hopefully for other medical professionals who are trying to understand, my some of my colleagues still say to me like, what is this that you talk about? You just talk about supplements all day, or what are you doing? You're not doing surgery anymore. And just to really help the medical field, so maybe other professionals to understand what exactly this is, how maybe empowering medical professionals, like I really just feel I have so many colleagues and we're seeing so much burnout in the profession these days in medicine in general, just how to really maybe inspire them to look to alternative paths or just to have belief and confidence in themselves to make your career what will be a good fit for you and what can have even longevity as a career. And then how for anybody, when it's outside of talking about the real science and medicine and all those nitty gritty metabolic factors, how things like I talked about already how my partner influenced my career, but what are all of the other things you're putting in place to make those successful? Your mindset, your values, your relationships, your community. Obviously, all of those are really important too. So, we're definitely going to be speaking on those things because those are incredibly important factors for us on a day to day basis.
Like in regards to integration, I think that's the other benefit that we bring together to this is giving people a perspective and in ways that they can integrate all the different things that they're hearing about. And again, they're hearing a lot of things on their medical side from their doctors, on the physical side, on what they can be doing optimally for exercise or nutrition. And what we'd like to do is again bring a real conversation on how you can integrate all those things and how they can all play a role in like again a bigger picture and a bigger cycle of like a longevity cycle of health.
I think that there's so much to be covered. So I'm excited and looking forward to future episodes as well. For someone who's listening now who may feel overwhelmed by their own health. So, what would you say, or what's the first thing that you would want them to know?
I think the most important thing is just to understand yourself and your personal goals, and that everybody else really shouldn't have a say in that, right? I think everybody has a very specific formula for success, and it might not look like what your friends or family or other people that you see out there in the public are doing. It's a very individual process. You have to really empower yourself to make those decisions and feel confident. So getting data early and often is something we talk about because that gives us a lot of insight into how and where we individualize protocols and the approaches, and then really making sure it's 360. Right. So some people get really focused on one thing and they think that will determine all of their health. And it's just this supplement or it's just my exercise. But really understanding that you don't have to go so severely on the degrees that you're incorporating different approaches. Make it small. I like to say bite-sized approaches to all of this and making incremental change, because those incremental changes over time are massive and they're sustainable and they're usually more enjoyable and realistic for you to achieve. So it's really about building what you need for yourself in an approachable way, a tiny bite-sized way that you can be successful at. So setting yourself up for success from the beginning is really important.
Yeah, I would say similar. There's again now information is so readily accessible, and I think figuring out for yourself what those goals are, setting those goals for yourself, and then finding the tools that that best get you right. And like Dr. Dada said, they don't have to be these big leaps or these major commitments to huge programs, but just making taking little steps every day towards that bigger picture, towards that bigger goal.
Yeah, so really, where are the important things? You have to put a lot of attention and focus and effort. Where is that going to give you the biggest success versus, maybe just not prioritizing in the right way or not having an understanding for yourself, where you have to really double down and what can maybe be like a phase two or the next step or, kind of how to gamify or how to put those things into place that make sense for you. And because we're all busy. So this isn't something we have, all day to work on, but how to do it in the time that you have and where how to pick the important things out of those options that you get in the right way.
I think we also, and try to make, like I said, we see multi-generational practices, patients. And I think what we do is we try to goal set not only that, but for the age group, right? I think as we age, those goals should change. And as we adapt with those goals and create those changes, we set new goals as we go on. So I think using, again, these tools to understand, again, where I was at 20, my goal should be different at 30. And at 40, we're going to have different challenges that we did at 30, and so on and so forth. And so that as long as you're continuing to keep yourself, you're doing self check-ins for both, your health and again with your practitioner to keep you abreast of where you are. I think, you never get too far behind. And it's also never too late. We have clients that start with us in their 70s and 80s and make unbelievable gains and huge changes in their quality of life. So it's never too late to start.
Absolutely. I think that that's something that's super important to mention too, because I think oftentimes when people think about longevity and as they're older, they may feel, oh, I'm already, X age, or I should have started this when I was younger. I should have done this. I should have done that. So knowing that you really can get better and enhance yourself at any stage, I think is super important as well.
Yeah, you can never start too early, and you can never start too late. Because I think one thing we've also understood is that people are starting to think of this earlier, and we're seeing these trends in, even the way younger generations or, those in their 20s, 30s, this is really an area of focus, and they understand, "Hey, I've seen family members go through certain health issues." I'm really shocked in seeing younger and younger patients who really wanna get on this optimization focus. And so I think that age group, maybe we don't speak enough about what are the long-term things that are not extreme, that are small habits, that are not trends and not things you have to spend a fortune on, and how do you make it just part of your lifestyle? Like, they're not statistically, we're seeing decreased engagement in, alcohol use. And, now it's kind of more of a focus on wellness, even in socializing or, more like health-based longevity communities and things like that. And that's a great absolutely great to see that out there. Are you balancing it in the right way? Is it taking over your 20s and 30s? So we can go too far in any direction with it. But again, creating that custom program in your context, what makes the most sense for you, I think is really what we like to do. And even for ourselves, we're not super extreme. When people talk to us, they're like, oh my gosh, how do you feel, having dinner together? Are you all self conscious about it? Like, no, we realize that you have to make things approachable and doable and enjoyable. And so even if like, for example, if you're not an exerciser, what can you do in a small way that you're going to enjoy and sustain and do it long term? And then we'll grow it from there, right? So we have to meet you where you are. I think for individuals, you have to be realistic in that way too. We're so hard on ourselves, more than not. And where are the small things you can do? But then once you recognize that and commit, you do have to commit. So it's not something that comes for free. It does come, at with effort and focus, but it doesn't have to be, setting goals and things that are just insurmountable, that are not aligned with how you really live. So I think that reasonable approach to it and that practicality is also something we see as successful over time for ourselves and for our patients.
Absolutely. I feel like just thinking about that, starting those first steps, the starting small, or what is going to be sustainable. Because I feel oftentimes with health and wellness and exercise, people put too much pressure on themselves and dive into taking on too much. Oh, I don't work out, but I'm going to go to the gym 6 days this week for an hour at a time versus saying, how can I just, maybe fit 20 minutes in a day? Or those little things, I think are still relatable, especially with people that are, busy. We have busy lives. There's always so much going on. So I think it's helpful to break those things down in such small increments to make it more realistic and more possible for sure.
Yeah. And if somebody already doing it at a high level, what's next for you, right? Like what are kind of the cool innovations and what is worth trying, what's not ready to be, really what really doesn't have the scientific validity yet. When is it worth maybe jumping into something that's newer? I think those are all things that we really like to stay on top of too, because it's exciting. That's where, the fun, shiny new toys is very much, a part of things. And with medicine, we can be slow to adopt, but I think now we're seeing innovation and change at a really, really exciting pace. And we get a lot of real world data that we can take really seriously. And so, like, I know, seeing even just how Dr. Thomas, how John, you like build out your new protocols, your new programs, your new equipment, all of those, and how we're using new, let's say, even supplements, things like that. We really do keep at the forefront of it. So, wherever you are, we can really help kind of create those programs and you can create them for yourselves too, I think, with our guidance.
Yeah, I think that's kind of also where we add value is, at every stage and at whatever stage you're starting, we have experience to help you optimize at that level. So whether it's again, if you're just starting off with exercise, your lifestyle and how you do those little, if you're, like I said, a desk jockey, then like, oh, maybe just standing up more rather than sitting at your desk, you know, and using a standing desk. Or if it's someone who's training 5, 6 days a week, it's like, all right, are you optimizing your recovery? Or are you having the right to eat that? So I think that our ability to, again, like Dr. Daughter said, meet you where you are and then give you the tools at whatever level that is to make it work for you, right? That to make it work in your lifestyle and to make it something that, that's attainable and it doesn't feel so overwhelming.
Absolutely. I think that this podcast is going to cover so much. There's so much, like I said, context and things to cover between your business and your opinions on health, and then this dynamic that you both have. So I'm super excited for this podcast and for episodes to come. This is just the beginning, absolutely, the Everyday Longevity Collective. So for everyone listening, make sure to follow, subscribe, and share this episode with someone you care about because health plans compounds and so does wisdom. So see you all next time. And I'm so excited to be working with you and can't wait for the next episode.
We're thrilled. We can't wait to see where this goes. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
We're very excited. Thank you very much. And again, we look forward to the next.